Hello, once again, all you homies out there in the land of the internet. We are back once again, so come out, hang out with us on that old co-op couch of virtual reality that we always talk about. We're the Split Screen Cynics, and we are the #1 show on the internet, hosted by three dudes named Garrett, Tim, and Berto. And you can check my stats on that if you like. I'm pretty sure we are the #1 show that fits all the aforementioned criteria.
Sure.
And
That'd be wild if there was a different.
If you disagree, let us know. Let us know. Shoot us an email, get at us, and let us know if there's another show out there hosted by Garrett, Berto, and Tim that is better than ours. But I guarantee you will not find one. You'll be very hard pressed. Like I said, we're the Split Screen Cynics, and we're here to talk about video games, news, games that we're playing, and take a whole ton of tangents along the way because. And I'm pretty sure I used this line before, but I'm going to use it again because I love it so much. If you just do the critical path in a video game, you miss out on all the cool shit along the way. So do all those little side missions, do all the side stories, and that's what we're going to do with our tangents. Joining me, as always, are two of the coolest dudes that I have the pleasure of knowing. To my right on the screen, because that's how I have it set up, is Garrett. Garrett, how are you?
I'm good. I'm hanging out. I took a nice little break there. I guess we all did technically, but I was in Disney World, so that was dope.
How was it?
It's a lot of fun. This was sort of the last hurrah of me and my wife before I assume the next Disney World we might have children, so it'll be awful.
No, because what you do is you just drop them off and then you go drinking around the world.
I don't think that's how Disney World works.
I'm totally sure that's how it works. I've seen it done.
This let us drink around the world just by ourselves and stuff. Although it's cool. Like Hollywood Studios has like a craft beer place now. It seems like alcohol's more involved at Disney, but not CBD oil because some lady got arrested for 12 hours because she had it at Disney. So
isn't there like no effects of CBD oil?
Basically, but they actually have posted in the parks, like do not like you along with firearms because it's Florida, and probably alligators or something. It says like no marijuana products whatsoever, no CBD products. So, because I think it's not quite legalized, but it's gonna be, or I don't know what's happening as far as marijuana's involved. But yes, Disney World was fun, especially if you don't have kids, because you can just fast pass the right rides and like not wait online for terrible rides. So I had a lot of fun. How have you been, Berto?
I've been doing great. I have not gone to Disney World because I'm doing a far less fun thing. I'm still waiting to close on our co-op, which is taking for fucking ever. Ooh. And it's draining the life out of me.
Yeah, it's not a fun process.
and it's taking all my money. My wife and I are going to be living off of ramen noodles. I'm not very happy to go back to my old college diet.
Dude, it's good. I did great on it, except for the whole graduating part, but that wasn't because of the diet.
Hey, you made it.
Yeah, I'm still alive.
Yeah, there you go. Moment. See, so what are you talking about? I just don't want to eat. I don't want to eat ramen noodles every night. But they are cheap, so positives.
Tim, how you doing?
Terrible. I just lost my first Counter-Strike match of the season, and all the wins in the world added up feel not as bad as one loss. That's just how Counter-Strike is. It's a harsh mistress.
Was it a close match at least? Or?
No, it was not. It was a complete. Let's move past it. I'm great. Getting some time off work this week. It's going to be nice to refresh a little bit. Just trying to, get back into the swing of things, I guess.
I have one question, and this is not related to the podcast, but the picture frames behind you, are they intentionally not in line with the light switch? Because that's throwing me off bad.
I mean, the frames themselves are also kind of offset.
Now we're talking.
It's like those movies with like the Addams Family and stuff, where they like try to fix the paint thing and it just
it just goes back.
As soon as they look away, it just like turns back.
All right, just checking.
The neutral position is off center.
All right. Not a problem.
They're very lovely paintings or photographs, whatever.
I painted them myself.
Oh,
it's nice art. You have very nice pieces of art.
I didn't paint them myself. But.
So on top of Counter-Strike, Tim, what else have you been playing?
Oh boy, I mean, we're coming back from a month break, but I played a lot. I've been playing a lot of games. I started playing through Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion again recently, which is a nice little, I guess like horror satire, I guess is the best way to call it.
What's it called? Spooky Jump Scare Mansion?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I know.
That sounds like a fun game.
Yeah, it's kind of clever. It's pretty old school graphics. It's just first person. I think it's also called like House of 1,000 Jump Scares or something. I don't know, but there's 1,000 rooms in the building, and you just have to go from room to room. Most rooms are pretty uneventful, but sometimes these cute little jump scares pop out, and it's funny because the game just starts out kind of goofy, and then it gets progressively more and more scary, but it still has those little goofy jump scares that pop out, and when you're laughing at them at the beginning of the game, but then you're legitimately surprised later on in the game, it's pretty clever.
Like the game progresses to like actual scary like stuff, or is it?
Well, yeah, there's like enemies that chase after you and shit. And,
okay.
But then like you'll just see like a cupcake like pop out of the wall and be like,
wall cupcake. Okay.
Yeah.
A much lesser known food item than wall chicken.
I've been playing through Beholder, which is kind of like a Papers, Please-esque game.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically you're the manager of this building, and this, what's the right word for this? This, let's just say, not dystopian is probably the best way to say it. Like this very harsh government with heavy surveillance, and you have to basically set up cameras and monitor your tenants and try and exploit them for everything you can, or else like your whole family is gonna die.
Wow,
obviously. It's got an interesting art style, and there's some interesting things going on with it. I'm not good at these types of games because they make you like do mean things, and I'm like such a baby about that stuff. I'm like, I don't want to do that, but it's fun playing with other people who have less inhibitions, I guess, about
and
that type of stuff.
who have no qualms about being terrible human beings.
Just ruthless, and you got to be ruthless to get anywhere in that game.
Much like real life.
Right. These are lessons. I have been playing a lot of Sekiro, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I try to play it whenever I can because it's like contesting Dark Souls for me in terms of how much fun it is to play.
It's pretty dope. I'm actually probably gonna stream it later. Can I ask what was the last big thing you did in the game?
The last boss I killed was the giant ape.
Oh, I think you're past me then, or not necessarily, but
maybe. There's a lot of different ways you can go.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's so much fun. Every time you start to get the hang of the controls, and you start to really mess up some bosses, and you get into the fluidity of it, and then you're like, oh, I got this game on lock, and then you get to the next boss, and he just kicks your ass. You have to start over again.
Not as good as not as much lock that I thought.
It's weird because the last time I streamed, I had like I think it was like 2 hours. I did a tiny stream, but I was cruising through the game, and I thought it was really weird. And I was expecting like to get destroyed, and it didn't happen. I actually beat like a big boss and got a pretty key item as far as the story goes. And like I don't think I actually died a single time. Like I resurrected once or twice, but I didn't like truly die. And I was like, what? So I'm expecting to get destroyed the next time.
Yeah, I mean it's the ebb and flow, but yeah, I played some other games, but I'll wait because I've already talked a lot.
Oh, sure. You want to just list them just in case?
Well, I'll just talk. I'll talk about when you guys talk.
Oh, okay.
You guys probably played these games.
So, Berto, what have you been playing?
Well, in addition to what we're going to be talking about in segment 3, but I think that's pretty much a given that everyone's already been playing.
Ori and the Blind Forest. Hopefully, we've all been playing.
But I mean, we have all been playing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Hopefully, some listeners too.
Wait,
what?
Shit. What are we supposed to be playing for?
Is this?
Fuck.
This is what podcast is this?
It's Counter-Strike podcast.
Oh shit! I'm on the wrong.
It's Tim
podcast.
Talks the whole time. Tim, back to you.
This is my list of games.
It's TTCC. It's CS. Tim Talks Counter-Strike. I've been playing Ori. Outside of Ori, I've been playing a lot of games on my Switch. I've been playing Katana Zero on the Switch, and also decided to try Cuphead when that released on the Switch because I needed to see what all the buzz was about on Cuphead. And since I didn't have an Xbox One, couldn't play Cuphead, but now it's on the Switch. I'm like, you know what? Let me give this game a shot. If everyone's talking about how awesome this game was, and I gotta be honest, it's not hooking me like I thought it would.
Wow, I loved that game.
Can I ask why you think it's not hooking you? Is it not hooking you because of difficulty? Is it not hooking you because of the art style?
I don't mind the difficulty because I will repeatedly ram my head against a wall until I bust through. So difficulty is not an issue. Celeste was a difficult game, and I was, dying multiple times on the same level before making any progress. So it's definitely not that. I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm not a big fan of just constant boss rush modes, which is essentially what Cuphead is. It's just one giant boss rush with some run and gun levels here and there.
Yeah. For the record, when I played that game, I played it co-op the entire time, and I definitely think that contributed to why I enjoyed it a lot. It's the fact that you can just play co-op. Like, I think it does co-op really well. It doesn't break the game. It doesn't make it way easier, but at the same time, it doesn't punish you too much for playing co-op. So if you can find someone to play, I would recommend playing it with someone else.
That's something that I actually because I got Cuphead, I think it was on sale for one of the Steam sales, and I picked it up and I played a couple hours of it and I was into it, but it didn't I obviously haven't progressed. I never finished it. So I kind of felt the same way. I was like, oh, this is cool, but I wasn't blown away by it. And I think that's because I didn't give it enough of a chance. I think I played it for 2 hours quick or something. But yeah, I wonder if the co-op would help with that, because I kind of felt the same way a little bit.
Yeah, definitely give it a shot in co-op and see if that does anything, if it makes it more fun, which, for lack of a better phrase, because it isn't that the game isn't fun. The levels that I did play, that I did get through, I was like, I could see myself enjoying this, but I think it was just the fact that it's just one giant boss rush mode. And
that's fair.
Essentially, that's the way the game is styled, and that has a story and king dice, and you're gambling and doing all your shit that you're not supposed to be doing, and now you got to collect souls. So there's a loose story.
Yeah.
But it's still wrapped up in it's just one giant boss rush where you got to collect all the contracts.
It's weird because I think the levels that weren't the boss rushes are the ones that I just hated.
I agree. That's the thing.
The run and gun, yeah.
I felt that I really liked the boss rush aspect of it, and I can understand how that can get kind of monotonous, but I just think that the bosses were pretty well designed, and it was fun for me to just bash my face against bosses over and over and over again until I finally had the pattern down.
Yeah.
But
because I think that the side-scrolling levels are kind of just I don't think they are particularly well designed.
They aren't. Those are my least favorite part of the game.
A left to right with a bunch of enemies generally. So I think those were the ones that slowed me down. I think the bosses were kind of fun. But I will say the other thing I didn't. Sorry.
And this is just me personally, but it took me way too long to realize that the pink projectiles are the ones that you could parry. I was trying to parry everything, and I'm like, why the fuck isn't this working?
Yeah. You can parry a lot of things that are pink that you wouldn't think that you could parry, maybe. Yeah. But what did you think of Katana Zero?
Katana Zero, I absolutely loved. This is definitely a game this is definitely a Berto game. I absolutely loved it. And this is also one of those other games where it's a difficult game because it's one hit and you're dead and you got to restart the entire room. So basically, you're this weird pixelated looking samurai dude, and you can freeze time and you can reverse time. And then if you die, you go back to the beginning of the level and start it over again. And they work that mechanic really well into the story of the game also. And I got to be frank, the story was one of the things that hooked me, because at the end of the game, they leave it open for a sequel. And I'm like, oh, you can't just do this to me. I got to find out what happens next. I'm like, you can't leave me on this cliffhanger.
Yeah, but I feel like it takes the Hotline Miami and concept and just took it to the next level. I really enjoyed it.
I haven't actually played it. I'm looking at. Oh, I know this game. Okay, sorry, I had to Google it quick. I was like,
it just plays really smooth.
It does.
It seems. I guess, is it published or developed by Devolver?
I think it's published by Devolver Digital, and it's developed by. It was like one dude who did like all the development, the dev work.
Interesting. Because I think they also published Hotline Miami.
They did,
and they also are publishing My Friend Pedro when that comes out.
Where you're like friends with a talking banana who's also an assassin.
But it's kind
Isn't that where you're like a skateboard guy with double guns or something?
Yeah, it seems like all of these games have similar gameplay, but I mean, I can't speak for My Friend Pedro, obviously, but I think it's just a really well-made game. It's fun. There's also a bunch of little secrets you can get. I didn't get all of them, but it was cool kind of looking for them a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely want to go back and try it again and just run through it one more time and see if I can get through the levels a lot quicker. There's definitely certain levels where I was like 20 minutes just like, how the fuck do I do this? And then you have like a perfect run going, and then like right at the very end, you get like one hit and you're like, God damn it.
Yep.
So that's what I've been playing. I want to definitely jump back into it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
What about you, Garrett?
Thanks.
What have you been playing?
I was about to say, I'm like, well, Garrett.
I didn't want to be like, oh, also me.
Let's move on to the next segment of news.
Let's talk about oh wait, there's a Garrett. What have you been playing?
Honestly, this week has been, or this month, however long it's been since we last did a podcast, I've just kind of gone back to games I've already played, so I won't bore you too much with them. I got back into Smash Bros. Shout out to Growler's Beer Bistro. We're doing a tournament. I think it's June 12th. It's sponsored by Sloop
I guess
Brewing.
I know what I'm doing.
So if you want to come play, come to my bar and do it. I'm not allowed to play because I'll beat everybody.
I was going to say there's no. You have to be like not playing because you and King Dedede are just going to rock everyone.
That's actually in the rules. I'll be working, so I'll be serving too. So I've been playing a lot of Smash Bros. I got back into Rocket League because Billy's got me back on that. I was playing that pirate game. What is it called? The Microsoft. I can't even think of it.
Oh,
it's
the one
slow and
Atlas.
boring. What is it called? Atlas? No, it's not Atlas.
Sea of Thieves.
I'll bring up Atlas on each end.
I know you always do. Sea of Thieves. I played that with Billy. It was fun, but I don't know. That game's kind of boring. I got back into Hearthstone. I don't know why. I was watching on Twitch, and there was the current meta, the decks. Like I really liked the concept of them, so I got back into that. And I was able to build.
How much of your time has been sucked into by Hearthstone?
A tremendous amount because it's such a passive game. Like you don't even have to try to be alive during it. You're just like, whatever. Like, like it's so much easier than Magic the Gathering, but it scratches that itch that I always have. Amongst other things, some Apex here and there, a billion different games. Katamari, I was rolling around in, and then Ori and the Blind Forest. So nothing quite new. Hopefully I'll amend that next week. The is it called Days Gone, the new zombie motorcycle game for PlayStation? I've actually had some buddies recommend that to me, so I might jump in on that next week or something.
Yeah, I wanted to try that, but after I've read a lot about it saying that the concepts behind the game are really good. It's very ambitious, but it's just like technically there's a whole bunch of hiccups and flaws with it that kind of pull you away from it.
Yeah, I'll see. So, I got 2 good recommends for it, so I'll see where the price is at. If it's dropped a little bit, maybe I'll grab it. But honestly, nothing new aside from Ori, which we're going to talk about in segment 3, which I did or did not enjoy. We'll see.
Oh, really?
No, we'll see. Well, I'm not saying anything yet. Should we move to the cynical spin? Should we
you're not saying, but you already said everything.
I said did or did not. Like that's both. Also, Game of Thrones sucks. Segment 2, cynical spin. We'll talk about some news.
I mean, I agree with you with this latest season, but in general,
I've been saying it for years, man. Thanks for catching up finally.
Thanks for the writers catching up as well. That's what you mean, Tim. But that's
wait.
fair.
How many episodes we got left? Hey, we got 6 episodes left. All right, fuck them,
dude. I could fill this whole podcast with ranting about Game of Thrones, but I won't.
I was in the waiting room at the hospital, and there's this old couple talking, and they were just discussing about how disappointing this season of Game of Thrones was. And
I was respect to that old couple. They know what's up.
I was laughing about it.
It's literally one of the worst. It's awful. I'll just say that. I don't want to go on a crazy rant.
It is not a good season. It's a solid 4 out of 10.
I think it's like a 0 out of everything because I don't even care about it anymore. I just want to read the books.
See, I'm a little
if they
bit more
come out.
lenient. They at least put characters on the screen. That's enough for maybe like a 1.
I guess there was cool music. They did the music well.
Next time on Game of Thrones Live.
Yeah,
with
right.
Split screen.
Split screen. HBO.
With what you're playing out of the way, we are going to go right into our next segment, which is our usual cynical spin. So let's take it away. First news item: game dev PTSD from working on Mortal Kombat. Who threw this one on there?
I think this is Tim.
I did.
Tim, you want to take this one?
This is a report from Kotaku, my favorite, and they basically there's an anonymous source from is it NetherRealm Studios? Is that
Yes.
basically saying that they were working on like animations and cutscenes for Mortal Kombat, and essentially they were encouraged to like look at I guess real life gore images and footage like that. I don't think it doesn't say anything that they were like directly told to do it, but essentially they're reporting on a culture where they would walk around their office and see one person like looking at videos of like dead bodies or things like that, and essentially that. And apparently the developer was having trouble sleeping, having nightmares, and they went to a psychiatrist and got diagnosed with PTSD. And it's one of those kind of like, this is just starting a conversation articles where it's like, this is an issue that no one would think of. But what are you guys' thoughts on that?
So when I first saw the news hit that you put up there, I thought it was going to be another one of these articles about, because NetherRealm Studios has also been in the news because of the crunch, and people have been working 15-hour days to get games in on time. And I was like, oh, is this like an expounding of the NetherRealm thing? It's just coming on the heels of Epic and Rockstar and all the. And then when I actually read the article, I was like, oh no, this is much, much more different. I'm like, legit, like real, like getting diagnosed with PTSD. That is ridiculous. Like for essentially looking up these gory images day in and day out to try and get. And I get it, it's Mortal Kombat, so it's like this is what Mortal Kombat is. But at the same time, it's nuts that doing this day in and day out, getting to the point where you get diagnosed with PTSD, where you're having trouble sleeping because when you close your eyes, you're seeing like these violent and gory images. It was absolutely nuts when I read this.
I actually I saw this title and I didn't click on it when I saw it on Kotaku, and I kind of was just like, oh, that's pretty crazy, but whatever. And hearing that it was like, I didn't know they were encouraged to look at gore, and I didn't know it was like actual PTSD. I thought it was like a guy being like, oh yeah, man, I saw stuff in my dreams. It was nuts. So I'm actually surprised at how serious that is. That's like a really big deal. I can understand it because I was actually looking to buy this game for the bar I work at for people to play on the big screen. And then I saw one of the Shao Kahn fatalities where he hammers the person's head into their chest cavity and then golf club swings it through their back, and how gory it was. And I was like, oh, I can't do this in like a public setting. So it doesn't exactly surprise me, aside from I just kind of disregarded the article in the beginning. That's actually nuts. I like that's if that's a legit diagnosis, that's no joke. That's crazy. Because I even, and I've played like most of the Mortal Kombat games, like the fatalities have definitely stepped it up a notch.
Yeah, they have.
I think they're way more gory, and like as over as the top as they are, they're not like campy at all in a weird way. Like they are a bit, but they're pretty graphic and pretty like, I don't know how to explain it. Like the tongue in cheek isn't exactly there on a lot of them. Where I think previously there's always been sort of like a little bit of a goofiness to them. Tim, what was your response to this?
I mean, I'm classic cynical Tim. I feel like this to me seems like it's just a pile-on along with all the other issues. I mean, it's not just NetherRealm, the Riot Studios, all this stuff, the developer crunch issue, and a lot of these are real issues. This to me is not a real issue. I understand that it could be stressful if this is your job and this is what you're. I guess I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I know they make it fairly clear that the higher ups weren't saying you got to watch this for reference material. You got to look at this. It's just kind of like the way it's encouraged, and I agree with what you're saying, Garrett. Like, it's gotten past the point where it interests me. Like, I don't see as much of like a cheesiness, like a goofiness where it used to have. Now it's trying to be. It seems like it's trying to be a little bit more serious, which feels off. But these are just opinions on the game and like the style. I think once you start to police like how gory games can be, then we're getting to like Jack Thompson territory, and I feel like it's kind of a weird angle to take it, where it's like the developers are victims in this sense. Because no, like I think if the public doesn't want these games, then people aren't going to buy them, and there's not going to be a demand for them. And I understand, like, you can't just leave your job just because you don't feel comfortable. Like, this is a means for someone, but I just don't. I feel like this is a bit of a non-issue.
It did seem. Does the article? And sorry, I read every other article. This one I thought was not that big a deal, so I didn't read it. Does the article kind of put it on NetherRealm a little bit, or not?
That's the implication. That's how I understood it.
Because it does seem weird to me, because like if you're signed up to animate or what have you on Mortal Kombat, like I feel like you should be expecting
right. I mean, it's one thing to expect to have to look at dead bodies, and another thing to expect like, oh, I'm going to be working on a gory game. So I understand that side of it, but I just don't. I think that this is an article that would get no attention if there weren't already a bunch of articles talking about bad practices from
I can see that
like big AAA developers, and this is just capitalizing on that. And while I feel for you if this happened to you, anonymous dev, I'm sorry, I just don't think that there's a real solution to this.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because it might be part of the whole crunch thing that's at real fault here, and then this is just piling on to. As far as the diagnosis, I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, I could totally see how. And again, like to mention, had it not been for the recent awareness on studio practices, maybe this article gets sort of lost in the shuffle of other articles. But be that as it may, this is actually like, if it affects you to the point where your psyche, because I mean, watching disturbing images, whether or not the studio is telling you, hey, this is part of your research, you have to do this. I mean, it's getting done to make the fatalities as gory as they are in the game. To which you noted, Garrett, that the sort of tongue-in-cheek and campiness of the previous games is sort of lost, and now it's like, let's get the shock factor in there and just rip everyone's bones out because we can, and it's Mortal Kombat. I can imagine that doing research for something like that to try and get it as gory and as violent looking as possible day in and day out will definitely have an effect on you.
Yeah, I mean, I in a way I agree with him in that this is sort of like a small anecdote. Like, obviously, try to get better. Maybe don't work on Mortal Kombat for a little bit. Take a little time off, and maybe request to work on different animations or something. But yeah, it is a interesting little snippet in the whole kind of saga of these work environments. Certainly, I'm just blown away because I didn't. In my head, the article was just like somebody worked on it, and it was the Tetris effect. Like it wasn't a PTSD. So I was shocked.
I mean, I hope NetherRealm's getting this person some giving them some downtime so that they can hopefully decompress a little bit.
The single person does get some. But yeah, I don't know. I was interested. I was super interested in Mortal Kombat, and then I heard that there was crazy grindy DLC loot practices in it, so I gave up on it.
I like that segue, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even mean that as a segue. I was just bringing it up as on Mortal Kombat. But I will segue because I put this one. This is, I think, about a week ago. This happened. Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri is a Republican senator, and he's one of the younger. He's a very young. He's something like 30-something, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He proposed a new bill aimed at stopping games targeting minors from having loot boxes in it. I grabbed this article from Polygon. This kind of stuff we've sort of talked about before, but it's been, I believe Belgium was the first place that kind of outlawed it. A few other countries have followed suit, certainly. This is the kind of first time in the U.S. we've seen something like this. What do you guys feel about this? Essentially, the controversy to me is just the way that they describe like games targeting minors seems a little weird. Like, I personally am okay like stopping kids from doing this, but there's stuff in place for that. Essentially, you need a credit card, and you should, if you're a responsible adult and or older brother, sister, whatever, you should have that passworded, I think. But what do you guys think about this?
My initial reaction when I first read, because I had heard about this bill that was being discussed and being proposed, and when I read the name of the bill, the Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act, that is a loaded ass bill title right there from what they're actually trying to do. I'm like,
easy peasy.
I'm like, they're just trying to make it so that loot boxes are not a thing in video games. And when you're reading this, if you don't know nothing about video games and you were just told, hey, there's this act going through Congress right now called the Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act, you would think that video games are the worst thing in the fucking world.
To be honest, that's par for the course. Whenever they do any of this, they always title it like it always seems like video games.
It's like way to like lead the witness with that one.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you, Berto. I think it's kind of like this puritanical, like, think of the children thing, when I think we can all agree that loot boxes are, as a concept, are just predatory in general, and just trying to angle it from like, this is a problem because kids might be doing it, is just trying to gain support. And I like what Belgium's done. I think loot boxes are just bad practice. I wish that we could find alternatives, or at least regulations, so that people could get, drop rates and things like that. But I guess whatever you can do to get it through. But yeah, I really disagree with the angle that they're taking. I was just basically saying that it's like affecting kids.
It's what's weird about it to me is it's so short-sighted, and again, it's the government is short-sighted about things like video games and the internet and so on and so forth. Honestly, I think loot boxes are not the biggest issue for children, whereas I think mobile games are way worse in their practices and the way they target kids and adults too. I personally don't think loot boxes are the worst thing in the world, so long as they are done in a more controlled way. I think allowing people to straight up buy loot boxes is nuts. That is gambling. I do think some games handle it a little better. Rocket League treads the line of being okay, where you can get keys that drop and decryptors that open loot boxes, while originally being straight up buy keys to open loot boxes. So I don't know. Like, I wouldn't mind them being outlawed, but I think video game companies will just figure out a different way to do it, and it might be worse. It could be better, it could be worse. I always think the Dota 2 way to me is the best, where it's like you get loots to drop, and then if you want something specific, you could buy it on the marketplace because people are selling it all the time. And I think that therein lies the main issue, is that loot boxes, as long as you have access to specific items, I don't think it's an issue. When you kind of target kids and those with gambling addictions, where it's like there's a 1% drop chance only from these 2 months, I think that's where things get a little, like, that's where you got psychologists on the staff working, like, how can we milk the whales? Because that's, again, this is always targeting the whales that are willing to spend a lot of money on a game. So.
Oh yeah, because it's always the whales who give you like 70% or 80%, whatever the statistic is. I'm just picking these numbers out at random, but they're called whales for a reason, right? Because it's only a handful of people that are giving you the bulk of your revenue. It's not going to be the kids that are doing it. The kids might purchase once or twice by accident and then get yelled at by their parents, and then it never happens again. So that's not really the issue here. The other thing that I was like, actually, when I read through the article, one of the bigger things that I like scared me the most from this bill, if it actually starts to gain traction, is what they define as games aimed at minors, because
that's the real issue.
they didn't really like, they're like, oh, well, this is only for games aimed at minors, and then next question is, okay, so what do you define as a game aimed at a minor? And I'm like, in the article, there's a snippet here. It says, to define which games are aimed at minors, that fairly broad document points to childlike avatars, kid-friendly music, and in-game hosts, which appear to be popular television characters. So it's still kind of like an iffy definition of what a childlike game like aimed at a minor is.
Kid-friendly avatar is any game.
Yeah, I'm like, it's ridiculous. So this could be a very slippery slope if the FTC starts getting involved in enforcing this, if this bill ever gains traction.
Yeah. Again, I think that the bill is so unnecessary. I think it's an easy layup for this guy to propose it, because a lot of people will vote for it just because they're like, oh, video games, I don't understand those. Whereas like parents just don't give your kids access to the credit card information. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah, put like a hard parent block on it.
Yeah, it's so easy. And adults with gambling addictions, that's a different thing. Like even people without gambling addictions, I understand it can be extremely tempting. But that's why we're adults, or supposed to be adults, you know.
Game devs, make it mandatory that you have to put in your credit card each and every time that you want to do a transaction. Do you know how many people would be like, nah, fuck it, I don't want to do it because I don't want to get up and get my card? It works for me every time.
Yeah, I think that therein lies the issue. Like, it's unnecessary regulation, because if you really want to stop kids, those things are in place.
Yeah.
Just trust adults, and if adults aren't trustworthy, it's their money. You know what I mean? Like, no kid has like a debit card to put on to buy Fortnite skins. Like, that's just not a thing. So I don't quite get it. Just password your shit.
Yeah, seriously.
But we'll see, because it will be interesting, because I do like, and to piggyback on the Mortal Kombat thing, like, it seems like companies do whatever they can to make the money from the whales and stuff. Whereas Mortal Kombat, like in the alpha and beta, everyone was like, everything's too grindy. You need to fix the drop rates. And they're like, yeah, no problem. And then they release the game with those crazy drop rates and crazy grind. And then, like, you know, a month later, they'll be like, we were wrong, and patch it. But they've already made the money from the people they were looking to. So, but just don't buy those games. I didn't buy Mortal Kombat. I don't know. If you don't like it.
I didn't buy it either. And you know what? I'm probably not going to buy any games that do excessive loot boxes. Or if I do buy a game that does loot boxes, you know what? I'm just not going to purchase any.
There you go.
So speaking of loot boxes, this news story is also kind of an old one, but it was just too good to not talk about. Randy Pitchford, CEO of Gearbox, when he and the team got on stage, when they announced and they showed like sort of the first gameplay trailers and footage of Borderlands 3, he gets on stage and he triumphantly announces that there will be no loot boxes and no pay to win, no microtransactions of any kind for Borderlands 3, but that there will be skins kind of like in the same manner that there were in Borderlands 2. Game Informer does their whole Game Informer thing. They do the news thing, and they talk to, I think they confirm with some people who work at Gearbox that there will in fact be microtransactions for skins. So they're like, no, there actually are microtransactions. So Randy Pitchford is saying no microtransactions, and Game Informer says, hold on, there are microtransactions. And then Randy Pitchford proceeds to go apeshit on Twitter.
He freaked out real bad.
He like goes nuts. I pulled up the tweet right here. In response to Game Informer, come on guys, shitty clickbait headline. Literally seconds before I said that, I made it very clear we're going to do more cosmetic stuff like we did in Borderlands 2. I was not talking about premium currency and loot boxes kind of stuff not being in our game. Why would you guys fuck me on this is beyond me. Thanks a lot. And this was just the start of the whole back and forth, because Andy McNamara, the editor-in-chief of Game Informer, very calmly and very politely in a very professional manner gets in and starts, debating with Randy Pitchford and saying, okay, you said this, but our sources told us this, and we presented the information we were given in a credible way. And then Randy just keeps on going, and just somebody needs to take Twitter, like the same way that people need to take Twitter away from our current commander in chief. They need to do the same thing with Randy, because shit's just getting weird. And it only got weirder from there. It wasn't just this issue. Now there's like a whole nother thing going on with a former executive from Gearbox who was the voice of Claptrap. And then there's like a whole nother, can of worms that got opened up there and is playing itself out on Twitter.
Yeah, that guy claimed that Randy like shoved the shit out of him and yelled at him, and then he got fired because of that, or something like. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on.
Allegations of an altercation, which is why one of the reasons why he left Gearbox, and and then Randy just coming in and just being Randy. I didn't read the tweets, but I'm sure it was batshit crazy. Also, somebody take this man's phone away from him, or somebody just be like, hey, I'm the community manager, let me handle this, you go do magic somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, just to agree with that, anytime anything like this happens, I'm just shocked that big companies don't have like a nope, you're not allowed on Twitter like kind of a thing in place. That's always been my opinion of this. Like, if you're any sort of big level anybody, just don't allow that person on Twitter. Like, they just shouldn't be allowed.
Like, you have community managers for a reason. This is their job.
Just put it on their contract that somebody has to look over every tweet and gets to decide. Otherwise, you're not CEO. Like, whatever. Tim, I don't know. Do you have a response?
I'm just gonna give a cautionary tale to those who are really looking forward to Borderlands 3. Like, when's the last good Gearbox game? Name it. Is it Borderlands 2?
Into the Borderlands was fun.
I didn't play
Tales from the Borderlands.
Borderlands? When was that?
2000. Well, the last Borderlands game was Borderlands 2 was like 10 years ago or 8 years ago. Into the Tales from the Borderlands was maybe like 5 or 6 years ago.
Well, I'm just gonna say, just temper your expectations a little bit. I know personally, I think I was playing it with you, Garrett, and by the end of Borderlands 2, I was really getting a little sick of the vibe. It's a great looter shooter for sure. It's better than a looter shooter that I played very recently, but I just think this doesn't bode well for the release of Borderlands 3.
The way I feel about the Borderlands games is like, I'll play them if I have friends to play them with. I think they're well designed enough that humor irks me. Other than that, it's just going to be the same exact game as the other one. Like, whatever they change won't be that significant, I don't think so. Yeah. It'll be fun, but like, I'm not expecting like a crazy hit or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it just because I enjoyed Borderlands 2, and again, it's just mindless fun. Just dumb fun.
We could probably do like a little. We could all get it for PC or something, and just play through it. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll probably definitely play better than that game that Tim mentioned that rhymes with Schmantbum.
Oh, but that game it's going places.
Dude, yeah, they did.
They have like a 5-year plan.
Man, they had a stream. It was so embarrassing.
Don't go under.
5-year plan. Like, abandon it 1 month in.
It was just really sad to see that outburst because it was a fun event. I actually saw some of the event because they were streaming it live on Twitch. I saw some of the gameplay. It looked fun, and they got the whole team on stage, and like everyone was getting their due for putting in all the hard work, and it kind of like undermined all of that by seeing this giant man child just like, yeah, wait a minute, you booked me on yes. I'm like,
yeah, I don't know. It's just Twitter. If you're in a position of power or whatever, just don't have somebody look it over.
Like, that's what, get an executive assistant and have them tweet for you, because that way when you say some crazy shit like this, when you're like, tell Gabe and Forward, why would you fuck me like that, and you can be like, no, I'm not going to.
Entertainment, like, I'm into it, so just keep doing it. Honestly, it's great.
The dude just can't buy a break. This comes on the back of his whole like USB thing being left at medieval times, and then there's the
just a weird dude,
the whole porno thing, and the magic and Randy, come on, get your shit together.
I have no segue, but I tossed a few more on there, just little tiny things.
I mean, how do you segue from that?
I don't know, the weird porno USB Final Fantasy VII remake dropped. So this is mainly for you dudes, because I've never played through it. I started to play through it on old school graphics, and it just couldn't do it for me. It was probably the wrong time. But Final Fantasy VII remake, the trailer, or a trailer, I don't know if there's been previous ones, to be honest, did finally drop. I wanted to hear your guys' opinions. The only thing I noticed from it was Arif, whatever the fuck her name is. Her voice seemed really strange to me. I don't know if it was some Uncanny Valley stuff or something, but something with the voice acting was not doing it for me. What did you guys think of the trailer? I know you're both pretty big fans of Final Fantasy. Also, I did see from a source that it might still be episodic.
Yeah, I think it's still the case that it is going to be episodic. That much hasn't changed because I haven't seen anything to the contrary. It was a great trailer, but I'm still convinced that game is never coming out, and we're just getting drip fed these little trailers. And until the game physically releases, I won't believe it until I see it. It looked pretty though.
Tim, did you watch the trailer?
I did. I think it looks dangerously similar in gameplay to Final Fantasy 15.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the fastest way to lose my interest.
It looked a little. There was a lot of movement going on in the combat.
Why you gotta do that, dude? Just
Final Fantasy 15 combat was so good though.
Yeah, remember when you just press one button the whole time, and there was videos of some guy just pressing one button the whole time.
You gotta do that. Yeah, you gotta do that warp strike.
you gotta hold circle, dude.
Yeah,
hold circle. But yeah, I just get it out already. Come on, forever. I don't care. Like, it's gonna suck. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it'll be fine, but I'm gonna hate it.
I hope it's fine because I would like to play that game finally. But whatever. There was also controversy because Tifa was not in it, and people are like, they're gonna nerf her boobs because that's how the internet does things.
Because the internet asking the real questions. What about Tifa's
They're
boobs?
like, why they didn't show her because they're reducing her cup size. Oh God, internet. Speaking of reducing
on the
size,
real issues here.
This is a decent segue, I guess. Speaking of reducing size, the Sonic movie trailer dropped. Everyone hated it because it looked really bad. But they actually announced that they're going to change the design of Sonic because of the controversy. I mean, I had no hope for this movie anyway. Jim Carrey actually looks like he's having fun, so like that looked cool.
Yeah, it was fun to see like old Jim Carrey, not the anti-vaxxer Jim Carrey.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a bonkers dude in real life. But that being said, what do you guys think about this? This was wild to me.
I think it looks horrible, but I think you guys. I mean, you guys saw Detective Pikachu, so you guys should weigh in on this more than me. I think that game or that movie looked pretty horrifying. Personally, I didn't like the visual style. Everyone says it translated great. I thought it looked not too much different than this. So maybe that's just my, angry, clouded eyes.
There were some Pokemon that definitely looked a little like when you saw them in sort of a realistic, stylized version or a sort of realized interpretation of them, of what they would look like in a kind of pseudo real world. It was a little jarring. I'm thinking of like Lickitung and Mr. Mime. They looked a little kind of freaky.
And Jigglypuff.
I kind of like Jigglypuff.
Oh, really? I thought Jigglypuff was too hairy.
I thought Jigglypuff looked a little too yellow.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was a weird lighting in the bar.
Yeah, but as far as that, like Pikachu looked awesome. Psyduck, like for the most part, 90% of the Pokemon that they showed, I was like, yeah, I could sort of see that that's what they would look like had, we lived in a real-esque kind of world. Whereas when I saw Sonic with his, like, first of all, don't try and make him look real. Make him look like a video game character animated in CGI. I would have been a lot more okay with that. And also, don't give him human teeth. That was so freaky.
The picture, I think it was on Reddit or something. It was the kid from Jumanji when he's turned into a monkey.
Yes.
And it looks like that. This is a weird move. I kind of respect it that they're like, you know what? Let's redesign it. But at the same time, it's like that you got this far and didn't know that was an issue seems weird. I have no hopes for the movie.
No.
But
none whatsoever.
I don't know. Respect that they're kind of saying we screwed up. I'll give them that.
Yeah, I agree.
As far as the Detective Pikachu thing, that was a weird experience for me. I had a lot of nostalgia going on. They gave out Pokemon cards for it, which was like a weird warp back to the first movie when I saw it in theaters. I actually, yeah. You kept them wrapped up. I opened mine. I got a few olive oils. I don't know. I did like the movie. I thought it was actually way better than I thought it was going to be, and I actually had decent hopes for it from the. I thought the trailers were like, oh, maybe it'll be okay. I don't think it's the best movie ever.
No.
I don't think a Pokemon movie can be the best movie ever, to be honest. I think it did pretty well with what it had. I will admit, Tim, the visuals at first are jarring, but you get used to it quickly.
Oh, I'm sure. And I that's the thing. If this Sonic movie came out and it was actually good, I'm sure people could have. I mean, it's pretty freakish. I can't.
It's just.
I can't take this argument so far, but
yeah, it's a strange concept because the Pokemon movie, it's like you're trying to do live action, so I get the idea of making the Pokemon. It really just looks like they put realistic textures on them for the most part. Like they didn't really like change the design that much. And I think it works because it's live action. I think Sonic, like, because he's probably the only thing. Like I don't think Tails is in it. Maybe he is. It just makes it so much more jarring. Also, he's not like you're right. Like the teeth and the face, it just doesn't even look like him.
No. There was like an image floating around, and I'm sure it's made its way through the subreddits. And I saw it on Twitter where somebody did like a side by side of like that one scene in the trailer where Sonic is standing in the middle of all the missiles, and then they did like a side by side of somebody making a quote unquote more realistic looking Sonic, but with the more in line with the video game Sonic,
just,
so like big eyes, big
Sonic's
ears.
Face. Yeah.
And I was like, that looks so much better. Why didn't they do that?
I don't know how to explain it. The Pokemon movie, the effects are crazy, and there's a ton of CGI, and that's a little more jarring than anything. But I think the designs actually work for the movie. Whereas in the Sonic thing, it's like they just got his character so fundamentally wrong that it doesn't matter if they went realistic or not with it. It'd be like designing Pikachu and making him like 4 feet tall and like having weird human teeth and arms or something. I don't know.
And also that tagline, every hero has a Genesis.
I saw that.
Who came up with that?
I was cackling. I saw Pikachu at the Alamo, and they used the trailer, which I thought was weird because they were redesigning it. But I guess you already spent the money on it, so. And like the audience was like losing it. Like then it's funny because it hits some of the right notes. Again, like I think Dr. Robotnik's looking okay.
Yeah.
I liked the Genesis thing. I thought that was cheesy and kind of funny.
Was so fucking cheesy.
But yeah, I don't know. Woof. Pokemon, kind of okay. Either way.
Yeah, solid 7.5 out of 10.
Sure. I'm not good at rating movies. I just like them or I don't. I'm a Rotten Tomatoes kind of guy. Like I was into it. Should we move to segment 3?
Let us go to our third segment.
All right.
That's all the news we have.
This is segment 3. We did the game club. Again, we picked Ori and the Blind Forest, an old and somewhat and mostly critically acclaimed, I would call it a Metroidvania. That sounds appropriate, right? That we all played through in the past month. Hopefully some of you listeners have played it, are playing it, want to play it after this. Who knows? Either way, let us know what you think about what we thought about it or what you thought about it. But yeah, what was your expectations going in and how did that pan out for you guys?
So I didn't know what to expect because aside from a couple of screenshots here and there, I'd never really seen extensive gameplay of any kind for Ori and the Blind Forest, which is weird because it's a 4-year-old game, 5-year-old game. So I would have imagined I would have seen something somewhere, but I just hadn't. And I never really went out of my way to go search it out. So I didn't really know what to expect. When I first fired it up on Steam and started playing it, the thing that jumped out immediately was the visual style. I love the visual style of the game. And the music. The music is so calming and so soothing. I absolutely loved it. It just put me right in that mood.
Were you above expectations? Below? What were you thinking?
Well, definitely above expectations because then when after the lengthy intro, the cutscenes and that play out, when you actually start getting control of the game and making your way around, I was actually very surprised by how tight the controls played. I thought they were going to be a little. At some point when I saw the animations, I thought it was going to be a little sort of floaty, but it actually controlled a lot better than I expected it would when I first saw the game fire up. So I was really happy with the controls. Gameplay is a big thing, especially when you're talking Metroidvanias. If you don't have tight gameplay in a Metroidvania, it could seriously break the game.
Tim, what were your thoughts going in?
Yeah, I was in kind of the same boat. I literally knew nothing about this game, and I think I remember you saying, Berto, that it was a Metroidvania, and I was like, really? It doesn't sound like a Metroidvania from the title, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I would like, I think the game kind of had its moments. I think it was a little uneven. I know early on I was like kind of meh about it, and then once you get the power up where you can kind of like launch off of projectiles and enemies and stuff, I started to really enjoy the game. And then so that was like the peak of the game for me, and then it was kind of just like the rest of the game, like, you know, it started to fall off, and I was getting kind of bored of it by the end of it. But definitely worthwhile. I want to clarify, did we all play the definitive edition?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
That's what I bought it on Steam like a million years ago on a Steam sale. So.
Right. I don't know what the original graphics looked like. I thought the graphics were very nice. I thought the tone of it was a little bit corny, but like not, you know, like I think it's always a risky move when you try to pull, like, I guess you can call it this, like the up maneuver, where you like started out with like something really depressing happening.
Yeah, the beginning's a little rough, huh?
Yeah, it is.
And I think it works, but I don't know. There were mechanics I liked about the game and mechanics I didn't, but I think overall I enjoyed the game.
So just so everyone listening, if you haven't played the game, spoiler alerts from here on out, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely got a Ni no Kuni vibe in the beginning, because it's like, oh, look at this friendly fat owl thing, like dead. It's dead. It was your mom.
It's like he's God.
Which was funny because I was like, oh, let me start this game. Like, I'll play it for like an hour, and I had to keep playing because I was just like, oh my god, like But I kind of the same thing as you guys. Weirdly enough, I knew very little about this game. I in a previous podcast I said Metroidvania. In my head, I actually thought it was just a platformer. I didn't realize there was skill trees and power ups, and I thought it was really just about platforming and maneuvering. I was thinking more Celeste, honestly, than what it ended up being. Which I was pleasantly surprised. I agree, Tim. The little bash move, I think it was called, was definitely a high point of the game that really changed the fundamental flow of the game for me. And I went in thinking I wasn't going to like it that much. Something about that kind of art style doesn't work for me. Which is weird because it's gorgeous. I appreciated the art style. But when I see art style like that in games without playing them, in my head I always think they're going to be kind of like you said, Berto, kind of floaty, not great hitboxes. I always get reminded of Braid, which is funny because Braid's a great game. But the Braid art style I hate. I hated the art style in that game.
It's bad.
That weird,
it's
like,
very dated.
Yeah, that it just looks like a weird painting.
It's like kind of like a children's book-esque.
Yeah, and everything feels slow and weird. And Ori was not, so it was definitely above my expectations. And I might as well roll right into some specifics as far as pros and cons and stuff. I do think that the controls had issues, especially early in the game. I thought the wall jumping was terrible. And I don't know what about it was an issue for me, but it part of it was I was playing that on an Xbox controller because the game doesn't work with PS4 controllers very well for some reason. Also, that you can't change your controls is not acceptable.
Oh, you can't? I didn't even bother looking. I just accepted the default controls as given.
Unless I missed it, which that's on me if I did, but I went into the controls and could not figure out if I could change them or not. I really wanted to bind the shooting mechanic to a shoulder button. I found the controls really annoying to, like, having jump, the dash move, and the shoot all together didn't work for me. Which is funny because, again, I did not dislike the game. This is just little quips I had about it. But yeah, the wall jump early on frustrated the hell out of me. I think part of it is the art style a little bit, in that it's hard to discern things. I think
Right.
I think it's not that clear. The enemies I had some of the most trouble with were those stupid little slimes that just shot 3 projectiles.
Yeah.
The projectiles were glowy, tiny, and when you're shooting and everything's exploding and everything's moving, it's really difficult to make them out.
I definitely had those situations where it's kind of hard. There's like kind of a lot going on at one time, and you kind of have a sensory overload.
Yeah. And I especially the design to the game to me seems to be movement focused. Like, it's not really about aiming or shooting too much. It's way more about controlling your movement and spacing. And in a game that requires that, I think the art style actually suffered in that things were not very clear a lot. Between the background and foreground, you had all sorts of lighting effects going on and stuff. I often died to things I literally didn't see. Did you guys play on, I played on hard mode. I don't know if you guys played on hard or regular or whatever.
I did.
But in hard mode, it's basically like a 1 or 2 hit kill for most of the game. So not being able to see tiny little projectiles sometimes like is really frustrating. Until I figured out that the save mechanic is you just spam it. Like, you just save whenever.
Yeah, like I spam the save mechanic, and I was upgrading my upgrade tree early on and all attack stuff.
Me too.
And then eventually I just got to the point where I was like, running back to a save spot is just taking away too much time. And then I started upgrading the tree where you get hit points back for creating a soul link. So I was just spamming the fuck out of the soul link.
Yeah, that's interesting. So both of you guys went for the attack first. I actually went in the middle tree just because I saw deep at the end of it, you get, I think it generates more experience or something like, or one of them upgrades experience and it shows more secrets and stuff. So for me, that was like the most important. So I went heavily into that. But then I figured out that, yeah, you're right. Like, you get a health point every time you create a save point. Like, that would have been so useful.
I thought that was an issue in the way that the game works, because it's like you upgrade your health bar, you get all these things, but enemies' damage scales to the point where you're right, where it's like basically 2 hits. And I often found myself faced with this where I would be at a part and I would get hit once and I'd be like, is it even worth going? Like, should I just die and then try and get back here without taking a hit? Because, like, what's the point in having this, giant health bar if I'm gonna die in 2 hits anyway?
Mm-hmm.
And do I want, like, I just found myself playing most of the game with only one hit would kill me.
Yeah.
Because you get to a point, you're like, well, I'm here, I'm gonna save, but like,
the game is surprisingly hard.
And
I wasn't expecting that. Did you play on hard mode, Berto, or did
no?
you...
I just fired it up on normal mode.
Is it usually, like, how many hits like does it take usually to kill you from like a basic enemy?
From a basic enemy, now that I've got a couple of hit points, I can survive a decent bit. But then, like, as you venture deeper into the forest, you find some enemies that you take 1 hit from them and they knock away like 3 or 4 of your little health orbs. So for the larger enemies, it feels like it's a 2-hit kill kind of thing also.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that the game is also just full of what I think are 1-hit kills as far as the spikes and stuff are concerned.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Spikes I found were 2 hits. Like,
oh, really?
It seemed like they scaled with your health bar because, later on when I had like 10 or 11 health things, like, I would get hit by spikes and get put down to like 3.
I did notice at the very end of the game I would survive spikes once in a while. Yeah.
I don't know if it's flat or if it's just scale. That's whatever. I know personally, I did kind of have an issue with the attack style where you just have this little floating ball that you just spam essentially.
Yeah.
You can charge it up to explode, but it uses one of your your orbs that you want to use to make more save points. But other than that, you just and I was putting all my upgrades into it. At one point, you get an upgrade so it can attack 4 things at once, and it's like there's like 2 circumstances in the game where that's even going to matter, and it just wasn't satisfying to me just spamming. I did find like the ground pound, I guess, whatever it is, like where you just smash the ground, to be a lot more effective, and just reflecting projectiles back at enemies when you could do that. I thought that was fine, but the basic attack thing, it was just like a proximity thing, and I really didn't like the way that worked. but it seemed that was kind of they didn't want the focus of the game to be on. Like,
I think that was the concept was it was more about movement and dodging than attacking. And I actually once you got that mechanic to bounce off of enemies, I honestly would try to like almost speed run through enemies instead of actually killing them a lot. I do think that is where the game really takes off. I think you're right, Tim. Like that movement mechanic feels so good, and it kind of fixes the flaws I had as far as like the wall jumping kind of mechanic. Later in the game, you can climb walls and you could rocket off them and stuff. But I did think the skill tree, and I didn't go into the attack skill tree until basically the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I did find the skill tree pretty satisfying, and I thought the rate at which you gain skills was pretty good. Like you're the only time I ever was overloaded with skill points was again at the end of the game when I kind of like did a once over on the map and tried to like clear up all the secrets and stuff, which might have been it was a little bit of suffering just because I got skills and I was like, man, I should have gotten this like a year ago.
It's like I should have used this first.
Yeah, like the one where you could save and you gain health from it. I was like, oh my god, like why didn't I pick that up immediately? Yeah. But I actually did. I thought the skill tree was interesting because some of the movement options, like the dash in the air, I thought was amazing. That was when I got that. Like that really like sealed the game as far as movement for me. Like I had all the tools at my disposal. I don't know if you guys have gotten to that.
I did not get there, and I regretted going down the path I went. But
wait, is that something you get from the skill tree, or is that one of the sort of upgrades you get from those like trees and that you like link up to?
You can. And I actually looked this up because I was interested in the definitive edition. There's actually a whole area of the game that I believe was added, that I kind of stumbled on late game because it's a completely optional area.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually get a dash technique on the ground, from one of the trees. There's another technique where you can like lava grenade to activate certain switches.
I didn't get that. That was the one thing I missed.
Okay, so there's an optional area basically, and again, I believe it was definitive edition only. But you get a dash on the ground, which is pretty satisfying. But then you can
get that. But
you did. Okay, so you didn't. Basically, if you progress in that area, you can get the grenade from that area. Eventually, you can upgrade that dash to be usable in the air.
Right.
And it kind of unlocks like you're moving a little bit.
Huh, I might have to look for that then.
Yeah. Any other like big cons you guys had, and then we could go into some pros maybe. I thought the escape scenarios were a little frustrating. I don't know if
I felt like there was a definitive lack of boss fights. There was basically there were like boss scenarios.
Yeah.
But like I guess maybe I just went in with the wrong attitude. I'm upgrading all these damage things. I'm like I want to not have to worry about combat, and I'll try and manage the platforming myself. But it didn't really pay off, and I guess boss fight, like it wasn't a game that's very conducive to boss fights, so I can't really like I don't know if this is right to complain about, but it did seem like I would complete an area and be like, oh well, that's done, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. For a Metroidvania where you're sort of used to having like a mid boss or a boss fight of some kind before you progress to sort of the next area, it feels like moving from one section of the woods to the next was kind of easy. So upgrading and spending time, upgrading this attack tree, it's like, oh well, it's nice. I can shoot in 4 directions, but I don't really need it.
As a guy who didn't have the attacks, I do think you guys are underselling it a little bit, because having the most basic attack for most of the game, enemies become bullet sponges basically.
I can imagine.
So I do kind of agree, because like I think boss fights could have been great, especially considering the movement options available. Mm-hmm. But I do kind of think, honestly, like the basic enemies were surprisingly rich, in that like some of and I don't know if you've seen these, Berto, but the orbs late game that shoot the missiles, where you shoot the missiles back at them, but you use them to traverse. I feel like every little enemy is its own little puzzle. Again, I had a lot of trouble with those stupid slimes that just shot 3 missiles. And the fact that they were constantly moving and you had to judge the missile path, like, the only time I saw like quote unquote boss fights were where you got they were kind of things that would pop out of the ground. And I think there was 3 or 4 scenarios of those where it seemed kind of boss fighty, but
remarkably easy though, I feel like.
Yeah, it seemed like they were like considering a boss fight and kind of gave up on it.
Yeah.
And I do
I could see how that was like they wanted to put something there and they decided against it.
Yeah, I don't think the game's missing boss fights, but I think they could have implemented awesome ones.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that it misses them, but I feel like it wouldn't have hurt. I don't think that if they had a boss fight or 2, even if they just kept it at like 2 max throughout the entire game, especially with the abilities that you have, you know, like that reflectability, I could see how that could be used in conjunction with like the dash ability you're talking about to make for a pretty interesting boss fight scenario.
Yeah, and they could definitely implement mechanics in it to make a lot of use out of those. Which I know Ori and the Wisps, I think it's called, is coming out soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. If it's
we'll
more
see,
of this,
certainly.
where maybe we get some boss fights.
Yeah, we'll see if they put in boss fights. I'm trying to think of any other cons. I liked the music. I didn't think it was like amazing, to be honest. I thought it was pretty adequate, but I did have a funny thing where some notes in what I think is like the main theme kind of, I kept thinking of Breaking the Habit, Linkin Park, which is like, it's like we like is sort of like the melody, and he's like, I don't know what's worth fighting for.
Say, like, I don't know what
like, and it was just in my head the whole time. Like I played for I think 9 hours in the whole game.
Ori and
I'm just singing.
Blind Forest.
Like I kept singing that song, but I don't remember a lot of words. So it was just like, I don't know what's worth fighting for. Like it was just in my head the whole time.
I gotta save this fat Abdul. He just died in the beginning.
I will say I'm gonna kind of transition to pros maybe, unless you guys have any other big issues with it. I kind of mentioned the runaway parts sequences. I didn't like the most just because it seemed. I feel like the design comparing to something like Celeste on the B-sides where you have long stretches of like essentially you have to be kind of perfect throughout.
Yep.
They seemed way more frustrating and way more like unfair than the Celeste ones. I don't know why. Because Celeste you have to be picture perfect, and again, Celeste has that like immediate respawn mechanic that lowers that. And I think that was the issue with those fights where like there'd generally be a cinematic for a little bit in the beginning of it. And I especially remember running away from the owl one time and being like, okay, like this is just annoying because like the ceiling falls and like there's no chance of you knowing that's coming until you see it. So basically you're like guaranteed some deaths. Whereas like some of the B-sides on Celeste, I was able to ace certain parts that were absurdly hard. I don't think they're the worst thing. I think those kind of were the boss fights of the game, where those runaway
sort of
sequences
give you that feeling of urgency.
Yeah, and you couldn't save during them.
Yeah.
But yeah, pros. I did actually like the story. I think Tim was kind of right. Like it's a little bit generic, and the whole like kind of like sappy, feel sad, bittersweet kind of stuff. A little bit cliche, I guess, but I kind of liked it. I was surprised by it. And it was a little bit twisty. I don't know. Did you guys like the general story? I know, Berto, you still got to finish up a little bit, but
yeah, I'm like about halfway through, and like I said, I don't mind. You know, it's a like 5-year-old game, so I don't mind any spoiler. I'm still gonna play it because I'm already in. I'm like committed, so I'm gonna finish it either way.
But yeah, like I generally like the story. There's not even really a need to like do the ending or anything like that. Tim, you thought it was just kind of like eh. I mean, for a Metroidvania, I wasn't expecting too much, to be honest.
Right. I mean, the story was I feel like it was sparse. You know, it wasn't overbearing. It wasn't. It was just kind of like a backdrop for this world that you're exploring, and I thought it was nice. Yeah, I did think it maybe was a little corny in that like they're like, oh, you're gonna get attached to this like adorable character for a second, and then we're gonna kill this character, and then it's like, but maybe you can bring them back to life.
Yeah.
And it's like I thought it was cooler the way that they approached that type of thing in Ni no Kuni. It was a lot more gravity, but like I thought it was a pretty good story. I felt like it ended kind of suddenly, to be honest. I know we're trying to move past the cons here, but I definitely thought there was going to be a little bit more after the game ended. And then I was just like, oh, okay, I guess everything's cool.
It's weird because I agree with you in one way. Like I did sort of like I kind of felt the end coming, so I did like a sort of full map explore. So I was definitely satisfied with the gameplay. But there is a weird, like, it ends and then there's like a real quick cutscene and that's it. And it was like, oh, like
game.
Like you don't even really see the main characters. You just see like a little baby thing hatching, and it's like, oh, what? like you could miss it if you blink.
Yep.
But I think the length of the game overall was pretty good. I played 9 hours, 3 minutes, and 41 seconds, apparently, when I initially beat it. And
I thought about it was right. I'm about, what I say, when I got a look at my stats earlier, I'm about halfway through the game, and I'm about 5.5 hours in. So it sounds like it's between like a 9 and 11 hour game.
I mean, apparently my percentage complete is 95%. So I did a pretty decent job, I guess. But I thought the length was like perfect. I think if it went longer, I wouldn't have liked it. And I think towards the end, once I started having all the skills and was upgrading my tree faster, because again, if you explore the map like I did, which was basically get through the story and then do like a full kind of clear, you kind of, there's a sort of backloading of all the skills and stuff. So gaining all those things at the end definitely like reinvigorated my my enjoyment of the game. I definitely was thoroughly enjoying it by the end. I also, again, the difficulty to me was like pretty good. It felt a little cheap at points just because of the damage, but I enjoyed that it was difficult. Did you guys think the difficulty was on par? Or
I definitely, even in the normal setting, it's still very challenging. So I can only imagine what it's like if you put it on actual hard mode where it's like 2 hits and you're dead. So from my standpoint, playing on normal, I feel the difficulty was right where it needed to be. I don't think it was too easy. It wasn't too hard. It was hard enough to keep you coming back for more, but not so hard that you're like, fuck this shit.
Yeah, I felt like it was a little bit unbalanced. There were certain points where I was just kind of cruising through, and then certain points where I'd just be like the parts where you're supposed to be like floating around, where you're just like there's spikes everywhere, and you just have to like be pixel perfect as you go through and gather all these things, and you have no real like chances to drop a save point. I thought that could be kind of frustrating, but yeah, overall I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, like, I think they were the green frogs. There was one frog that had like laser shots that would just kill me like a million times. What are your guys' death counts at? I'm at 609. I don't know if that's good or bad, to be honest.
I was at 381.
Oh my god.
Oh, Jesus.
That is terrible.
I'm at 240, 50% of the way through the game. So expect my final death count will be at 480, 500.
Oh man, so I did the worst maybe. Although to be fair, I didn't quite get the save mechanic for the first like 4 hours. Like I just didn't realize that I thought, for some reason, I thought that the way energy worked was when you saved, you lost all your energy. I don't know why. So I would,
and you're like, no, I don't want to
save
lose it all.
and then like just brutally try for a while.
Oh, geez.
So I think that was more.
See, that was the way I was early on. I didn't use any of it because I wanted to save all my energy for those doors that needed like 4 or 5 energy orbs to open.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't create a soul link because if I do, I'm not going to be able to open this door, and I want to get in there to see what's behind it.
See, that was a really weird mechanic. The doors was weird to me because like I thought it was like you needed this many energy things just to open them, but it was you had to spend that many energy things.
Yeah.
And I like that was just really weird because sometimes you just wouldn't have them for other reasons. Like
yeah.
I didn't see at first. I thought those were just the same doors as the other ones where you had to like grab like the little stones to place them in there, and I didn't realize that like there was one time where I just was clicking on one of them and I just realized it was taking my soul. I was like, oh wow, how many of these doors have I missed?
Yeah, and the fact that it's like because there was one door that was way deep and I just didn't. I had 3 instead of 4. And I feel like the game's kind of sparse as far as the warp points, which I kind of think is a good thing, but it could be a little annoying late game. Like I feel like late game they should have introduced the ability to automatically warp to like kind of like a homeward bone from Dark Souls.
Right.
Instead of just going to like one of those, prayer basin things.
Yeah. Because it seemed a little tedious to explore at the end of the game a little bit. Although the world's not that big. But like it was annoying to me because like I had enough energy orbs, I just didn't actually have the energy to open it. So I had to like run way back up, find energy, and then run back down. Like it would have made more sense to me if it was like testing how many energy orbs you had total. So those seem weird. I did think the level design was pretty great. What did you guys think about the general, like, as far as the level layouts and secrets and the world and everything? I actually did really... That's probably, like, the best part of the game to me, is, like, the way the levels looked and the mechanics involved in each. Especially towards the end of the game. Like, I like the woods where it was changing. I really like the volcano kind of thing at the end. Beginning of the game, I thought it was kind of generic, but I thought it was pretty good level layout as far as Metroidvanias are concerned.
Yeah, I felt the same way. There were certain points where I was like kind of I don't want to say stuck, but like I was kind of baffled as to, like, why I wouldn't be able to pass a certain thing, or I'd see something that's obviously interactable, but you're supposed to come back to later. I don't know, that's a Metroidvania thing. But I thought that for the most part, it was like, oh, I can remember this and come back later when I get the ability to pass this.
Yeah, no, as far as level layout, it is a very solid level layout. Metroidvanias, one of the things, if you don't have good level design, then it is going to hinder the replayability, because if it's too complicated, then you're not going to have fun navigating the level. And if it's too easy, then there's no challenge in it. So it's kind of hard to toe that line between, simplicity and challenging. Like, you want to get it, like, it's a very fine line, and I think this does it very well.
Yeah. It was also cool because, like, even towards the end of the game, I never felt overpowered in areas. Like, the beginning enemies are easier to kill, but they can still do a lot of damage to you. So
yeah. Like, if you let your guard down and turn your back for a second and they run up on you, it's like, oh, half your health's gone.
Yeah, like you felt powerful enough to be satisfying without just making a cakewalk. Because in a lot of Metroidvanias towards the end of the game, like if you go to an earlier area, you're just destroying everything, and it's literally just walking from point A to point B to like find something you might have missed or something. So I kind of like that it kept on your toes, but you still felt like pretty strong. As far as replayability, like Tim, did you didn't like explore at the end of the game as far as like finding? Not necessarily trying 100%.
I planned on just doing like a sweep, kind of like what you said. I didn't reach the node that lets you see secret passageways.
Oh, okay.
And, when you beat the game, it doesn't let you like continue to, like, it just you can load your file and then like do all the things and then beat the game. But I don't know. I think it would have been nicer if they're just like, okay, like here's your exploration mode. You've completed the game. Like, this is. It's a very small nitpick, but I think if it just let me continue, I would have played around in it and like tried to get some of the power ups that I missed.
Yeah, that is a really weird. I feel like it should at least start you like at a warp point. That was really weird to me because it starts you essentially right before the last kind of battle thing or whatever.
I was just, I don't feel like,
Yeah. It should have had a warp point right there. It would have made a lot more sense.
So we actually got a question from somebody in chat.
Oh wow!
We actually have two people.
I forgot we were streaming.
Yeah, I just brought it up, and I forgot that we were. I'm like, wait, we're streaming now. I don't know how to answer this question because I don't honestly remember. They were asked. Nolan Richardson asked, "What were you guys doing back at 38:14?" I don't know what we were doing at the 38-minute mark. Probably talking some shit about Randy Pitchford. Does that sound right?
38:14. Like, why were we making weird faces?
I mean, I think that's par for the course, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I totally forgot we were streaming.
Yeah, I was like, oh crap, because I'm like, wait, let me get the Twitch stats.
Or is it the year?
We've got 3 viewers on, so
because it could have been BC.
Wait, how can they tell the timestamp?
I don't know. Or maybe it's 38. Maybe it's 38.
Nolan
14
Richardson
time zone, but in any case,
explain further. because we're confused. That's cool though.
All right.
Nothing but love. I like this guy or girl. This person's awesome.
I'm gonna write this down. It's an inside joke now. 3814.
3814. I gotta go back and watch it and be like, we were probably all like freaking out or something.
But what were you talking about just now before I interrupted you guys?
Essentially, the question was kind of to you, Berto, as far as like,
Sure.
did you? And I know you haven't finished the game, but like, are you interested in trying to 100% the game, or kind of like really go into it, or you think maybe not so much?
I am morally against 100% in games, just because I am lazy and I'm a critical path kind of guy, and I know I do the whole spiel at the intro of the show where taking the side paths is where you find all the interesting stuff. But especially now, because time is limited, I want to get through as many games as I possibly can. So I try and avoid doing side stuff, and it's got to be a very exceptional game for me to want 100% it, platinum it, 100%, whatever other trophy kind of shit that they have. I don't think I've ever platted a game or 100%ed a game.
I've definitely come close, but I don't think I have either.
Actually, no, that's false. I did get a platinum in The Walking Dead, because
Didn't you
get
do
a platinum
Spider-Man
if you beat the game.
Oh, well, that's cool.
That's if you do all seasons of The Walking Dead, you get a platinum. So I did that because all you got to do is just beat it. I think it's my only platinum, but I don't think I'm going to platinum this game or 100% it. I think I'm just going to finish it and see the game through to the end.
I would recommend, and Tim, I understand the way you kind of finish the game. It is really strange that they just dump you back where you were and not have like a warp point there. It is pretty rewarding to go back and kind of collect everything, especially because you're all powered up. Also, if you did miss the optional content, there's some decent stuff going on there. So not necessary 100%, but I would recommend it. I actually was surprised at how much I enjoyed going back and like collecting stuff. Because that's usually not my... Metroidvanias are weird for me, where I love them and I'm fond of them, but when I'm playing them, a lot of times I'm like, ugh, like I gotta backtrack. So
even with Symphony of the Night, which is arguably one of the epitome of Metroidvania.
Symphony of the Night, I've never actually given its full. I've played through the game and I've beaten it, but I've never given it. I think the Soma.
You haven't done the Upside Down Castle or anything?
I forget if it was the Upside Down Castle part, or there's some part where like to unlock it, you have to do some ridiculous thing. And I remember not being able to figure it out. My friend told me, and it was so ridiculous that I was like, it's something with like one of the enemies in the beginning, you have to like roll a bomb or something and hit the floor.
I mean, it's to break the ground and stuff. It's definitely
you gotta get the sunglasses, and then you gotta destroy the orb with the sunglasses. And there's a sunglasses.
I was like, that's too ridiculous for me, so I never actually did that part. So I've never like given that game its full due. I did do that in the Castlevania, the one with Soma. There's one for DS and one for Game Boy Advance. Aria of Sorrow, and the next one,
Dawn of Sorrow.
So those I did like 100% playthroughs almost, which is, it ends up being like 204% or so, I don't know what it ends up being. So I don't know, Metroidvanias are tough for me. Like a lot of the old Metroids I've played through once, and I tried to replay Super Metroid recently, and I was kind of like, something about the gameplay is not my favorite, which I was surprised because this game I enjoyed a lot. So maybe my taste has changed or something, but there's a lot of just like backtracking, and I'm not always the biggest fan of backtracking in games. But this one I took the time, and I apparently 95%ed it, so I did most of the stuff.
You need that extra 5%.
Yeah, but it was relatively quick. Like if you just wait till the end of the game, you could kind of just warp to places and rip through most of the stuff. Either way, Tim, I would recommend maybe finishing that little side area. And any fans listening out there, make sure you hit the side area if you have the definitive edition, because I don't think it's in the regular edition.
If you don't have the definitive edition, then you probably don't have that side area. So
yeah, I don't just get it. It's like $5, I think.
No, I mean, again, I don't know if the visuals have been upscaled in the definitive edition versus the original, but if they have, then I imagine it looks significantly better.
I mean, do we do we have anything else to add? Should we do little fake reviews like we always do?
Sure. You can kick off with the fake review.
Good Lord, let me get my picture here. Okay, I will give Ori and the Blind Forest. Apparently there's 33 skill orbs, and I will give it 26 skill orbs out of 33.
Whoa, okay.
Which I don't know what that translates to. It's pretty good. It's going to be my final say.
All right. I will give it 5 soul links that give you 5 health items back, but only after you realize that that is actually a kind of good skill after you've been dumping all your points into attack.
Fair.
So that's my review.
I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Oh, geez.
Just break the mold, why don't you, Tim?
Okay, fine.
Well, there goes this podcast. And what do we think? We're all kind of in agreement. The sequel probably worth playing.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna jump on the sequel when it comes out.
I hope they tweak it a bit. I don't know how. Boss fights could be interesting.
Yeah, like if we're talking about the things that we didn't like about it, overall, keep the map. Like the map design was great. Don't toy with that too much, because I think if they try and over-engineer it, that might be a detriment to the game. Maybe a couple of boss encounters, not like maybe 2 or 3, just to make it interesting. Maybe cut down on the chasings like you were talking about, because when you were talking chasing, I immediately thought of the tree where you're being where the water's coming up from the tree.
Yeah.
So I was like, that was kind of tedious also. So maybe not as many chase sequences. Maybe make the story a little less generic, because ultimately, even though this game is you're not playing the game for the story, if you make it a little bit more interesting, it might get a little bit more engagement.
Fair. So yeah, I guess we'll wrap things up. This has been episode 25, I think.
True. A quarter of 100 episodes for the Synics.
If I had to guess, we would be around the year mark for our podcast.
It's our birthday? We didn't even realize it? Jeez, we're terrible.
It might be the next one. I don't know. Well, essentially, if we do it every 2 weeks, 52 weeks in a year. Whoa. So 26. So episode 26 should be our 1 year anniversary, but we skipped a week.
So then you're right. This would have been episode.
Be our 1 year anniversary on this.
Holy shit! Cynic, so. Happy birthday to us.
Sure. Yeah. I guess. Whatever.
Yeah, we're a year old.
Woof. Oh, is that an owlet? What is it called?
It's my little furry bow tie son.
Whatever. Gronky? No, Grubby? Grookey. It's gonna be way cuter. The new Pokemon.
False. They are all garbage.
Oh, wow. Woof. Okay, so episode 25 in the books, Ori and the Blind Forest for Game Club. Most likely we will have another Game Club on our next episode, whatever the hell we end up doing for that. It's good to be back in the swing of things. Thank you so much for listening. Please get at us.
Absolutely. And to everyone and the people watching in chat, thank you so much for joining.
Nolan Richardson, dude, you get a cookie award. Boom.
Let me make it. Oh, wait, hold on. I gotta make a note of that. Nolan gets a cookie.
There you go.
All right.
But yes, please let us know what you think about Ori and the Blind Forest, about what we thought about it, future topics, future Game Club episodes you want to do, anything. Just get at us. We are on Instagram at Split Screen Synics with an S for the Synics and no E's, so Split Screen. You can find us there. SplitScreenCynics.com is our website. If you want to see me stream, I'm at twitch.tv/GaryCatsInto. I'm currently playing through Sekiro, so check that out. Berto, where can people find you at?
You can find me pretty much on all social media at Albie the one and only, ALBIETHA the number 1 NONLY. So that's all the personal social medias. As far as Split Screen Cynics, we also do have a Twitter handle, much like our Instagram. It's Split Screen Cynics, so SplitScreenSynics. And also, I do stream on the Split Screen Cynics Twitch account every Thursday and or Wednesday. This week it might be Wednesday because I have something going on Thursday. But trying to make that a regular thing on the Split Screen Cynics Twitch channel. And we're also gonna start streaming our podcast recordings because we
Hopefully
figured
can
out
make this regular.
a decent sort of way to present this. So we'll do that.
Also, we're uploading to YouTube and stuff now too. I don't know. We got too much stuff going on, basically.
Hey, that's the way it ought to be. We're creating content. Huzzah!
Tim's got the real, actual important plug.
I have Facebook, but I never check it.
Nice.
But if you know my name, you can look it up. This is the closest you're gonna get to a real plug from me.
Wow.
But
Tim
that was
real
like
stuff
a legit plug.
don't
I mean,
tell-
there's a little bit of work you guys got to do if you want to find him, though.
Yeah, how to spell Tim.
I mean, there's tons of Tims on Facebook.
it's an
TYN?
unconventional spelling.
Real unconventional. There's a
So
soft,
there you go, guys.
There's soft letters in there.
Have at it.
An ARG.
So yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for listening again. We will see you in 2 weeks. Keep on gaming. Peace.
Yeah, peace out. Thank you, everyone in chat. Bye.
Tim, say bye.
I said later.
Oh, sorry.